Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. I'm Steve.
And I'm Scott.
Broadcasting from Apple Valley, California.
And the Science and Technology Channel. And that is definitely going to come to the surface today, right? Definitely.
Yes, it is. So I saw this article about this guy who was doing his doctoral thesis, and he decided to write a book about an EMP attack at his hometown near Asheville, North Carolina. So I thought, I've heard, a lot about what happens after an EMP attack. So I decided to research it, and we're going to present that to you today.
So this is like an Orwell War of the Worlds type thing, right?
Everything is connected, microchips, everything.
Yeah.
Except for your 1970 Pinto.
Right. That's like one of the things that people have told me, goes, if there's a power outage, you're going to need cash when you go to the gas station or the grocery store. And I'm saying, no, that's not going to do you any good, because everything is on the register. Everything is the pump that pumps your fuel is all done electronically. Unless they got a backup generator,
then you got to protect the generator. We'll get into it.
Yeah. Anyway.
In a recent assessment on the risks associated with an EMP, the Electromagnetic Defense Task Force, not making that up, EDTF, of the United States Air Force, noted that the occurrence of an EMP could have dire consequences for society as a whole, and that of this report's release, the U.S. government has failed to mitigate the consequences of such an attack. And I don't think it's an understatement at all, or overstatement, the dire consequences. Like we were saying, everything's connected. If you have a chip, it's going to get fried. Though the U.S. military has taken steps to ensure that they would maintain national command authority and be able to operate after an attack, the U.S. government has failed to properly protect the electric grid and other critical infrastructure from the existential threat of an EMP attack. We're not talking existential threat of global warming or climate crisis.
This
puts you back in the dark ages,
in comparison to this.
It'll put you back in the dark ages. So hopefully this can help you with your personal situation, rather than we're talking about the government. But would you like to know more?
An electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, is a burst of electromagnetic energy created by the rapid acceleration of charged particles and occurs by line of sight. Aside from nuclear weapons, there are EMP generating devices. These are called explosively pumped flux compressor generators, or compression generators. Yeah, flux capacitor. That was Back to the Future, right?
Yeah.
These use electromagnetic physics to generate large pulses of electromagnetic energy. The basic idea is to generate an electromagnetic pulse in a coil surrounding a metal core. At the same time, the coil is compressed into the core using explosives. This charge or change in core geometry causes a compression of the electromagnetic field.
Okay. So that's what causes a pulse, artificially. So there are a number of different types of electromagnetic pulses. E1 from gamma radiation, that would be an atomic bomb. E2, comparable to a pulse occurring to a lightning strike, all that 1.21 gigawatts, right?
Gigawatts. Okay.
That's what they said on Back to the Future. And E3, a geomagnetic storm similar to a solar flare. Now, we've had scares about solar flares, right? Protect your devices, what they say. And
what do you do there? You unplug them?
No, because the flare will hit the chip inside of it. Unplugging them.
So it's gonna. So if you had a device with a chip, and you were holding on to that, and there was a solar flare.
Oh gosh, that brings up. You have to have every single.
That would be
like
what happened to those Hamas guys, right, with the phones there in Israel.
Well, let's continue on, because we're showing how to mitigate this, and it'll tell you how to protect it.
Yeah, we're not trying to scare anybody.
The EMP peaks at tens of kilovolts per meter in a few nanoseconds. That's a huge burst, right? And lasts for a few hundred nanoseconds. It's quick and it's fast, right? Powerful surge. E1 has a broadband power spectrum of frequency content between 10 to 100 megahertz, which allows it to couple with general electrical and electronic systems without regard for the length of the system's penetrating cables or antenna lines. And E1 induces currents ranging into the thousands of amperes. That's a lot of amps. And any exposed systems may be disturbed or permanently damaged. Do we have your attention?
A successful EMP attack on the U.S. can damage or disable large sections of the national electric grid and other critical infrastructure, which the electric grid, again, it's not just your lights. We're talking, like I said,
Gas
we're talking
station.
about gas stations. We're talking
Banks,
about
money,
water pumps that
Water
pump
pump-
water
yeah,
out of the
water
ground
pumps,
to give
yeah.
you water every day.
nuclear reactors.
Yeah, exactly. Charging stations for electric cars.
Mm-hmm.
All right, leading to widespread disruption of services, including but not limited to communications, transportation, food and water supply, and sanitation. Ooh, that's sanitation. That's
Yeah, that
another
could
one.
pile up, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The shutdown of critical infrastructure could last for months or even years, resulting in societal collapse and increased risks of starvation, disease, and societal unrest.
Well, I mean, that's an extreme, but I mean, it's you go back to the dark ages, 40 years ago when we didn't have cell phones and stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or even farther back than that when we didn't have computers, right?
Yeah.
We did everything manually.
And that disease is when the hospitals, they'll be fried too. So it's not like you can go get an invasive surgery. And then societal unrest, people are going to get hungry because they can't get their food. Right?
Yeah, you'll have to go back to growing it. That takes a while, right?
Yeah, that takes a while too. Unless you have food storage, then you can, kind of supplement it.
And then hope you have water because you're not going to get it out of your faucet. Yeah, it puts there's a lot of things tied to electricity. A lot of things, almost everything.
While EMPs do not directly harm people, they can cause significant damage to electronic devices and systems, anything with a chip, potentially leading to health-related issues and complications due to the lack of functioning medical equipment.
Lastly, in a worst-case scenario, all nuclear reactors in the affected region could be impacted, leading to as many as 60 meltdowns, similar to Japan's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster, which that happened a few years ago, right? When we had that earthquake there. Without off-site electricity, these reactors would be reliant on on-site systems to prevent a meltdown.
Like a generator,
yeah,
right?
Which could also, and then hopefully they'll have backup source for that generator, like fuel or whatever they use, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they're not going to be able to go to the gas station and pump it.
Well, it's funny that the reactor would create electrical energy that would feed the generator, that would feed the electronics, and it's weird.
Yeah. Which could also be compromised in the event of an EMP attack. Without both off-site and on-site power, the risk of radioactive contamination to the continental United States drastically increases, further compounding the damage done by the attack.
It sends you back to the dark ages and puts us at risk, seriously.
Yeah.
Though the consequences of an EMP attack or a naturally occurring EMP event, like solar flare or lightning, would be severe, there are a number of steps that one can take to mitigate its effects. There are commercial devices that shunt the overvoltage coming in from the grid and the induced voltage that is collected within the home. Shunting is completed incredibly fast. The overvoltage is drained away from the equipment before the voltage can rise high enough to damage any equipment.
The most pressing concerns are home protection and vehicle protection. Additionally, there are solar protection, battery protection, RV protection, and generator protection. It's a small 3-wire device that ties into whatever you are protecting, and it provides that shunt. I've seen good reviews from the EMP Shield.
Yeah, it's a device about this big, your cell phone, and it's got a couple wires hanging out, and you connect it to it, and that's the thing that shunts all that.
So you have to have one of those for each device?
For each car, each generator, each set of batteries, each your solar array, not each solar panel.
Wow.
Yeah. But the whole house would protect all the appliances because that pulse is coming. It collects it at the panel, and it protects the whole house. It's like a lightning strike.
On solar?
If you're not on solar, then you don't have power. I mean, because the grid is going to be down too from an EMP attack.
Yeah.
But if you have solar and batteries, or solar and a generator, you can still collect energy from the sun.
Yeah.
Can you imagine everyone within a 1,000-mile radius? That's line of sight. If it's a high altitude attack, losing all power and technology. The only things that still work are mechanical in nature. That is guns and bullets. It's near instant anarchy. I mean,
from here, Denver, Colorado is about 1,000 miles.
Yeah. So if something hit here, it would go out into the ocean and go as far as Denver. Now, You go to the center of the United States, Independence, Jackson, Missouri, that could reach out to both coasts. Darn near close.
So just to kind of bring this down to everyday life, when was the last time you went to a four-way controlled intersection with a traffic light and those lights went out and everybody was on their own? And I'm not talking about blinking red, but even then,
you're
it's
taking
chaotic.
turns. It's chaotic.
It's chaotic even with blinking red because everybody wants their turn.
Yeah.
But and if that happened like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 7 o'clock in the morning when everybody is heading to work or coming home, I mean that little simple outage and what kind of havoc and chaos that creates.
Yeah. So this device I was looking at is made by EMP Shield. That's the name of the company. I'm not fronting for them. I don't have that.
They're not a sponsor yet.
They're not a sponsor yet. But I mean it's kind of pricey for a little puck, that hook some wires in.
How much are they roughly?
Well, like a couple hundred.
Oh.
For each one. You got 2 vehicles. You got to hook them up to both vehicles.
So you got several devices. You'd have to hook those up, right?
Solar, battery. I mean, it can get pricey with whatever you have.
But what's the alternative?
The alternative is dark ages. It's growing your food and
no communication.
Candles for at
communication.
Night. No communication. Smoke signals.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Get in your car and drive if you can.
I don't mean to shock everyone, but I was shocked by the research I did. I really was. What I was seeing.
Something we need to be concerned about instead of transgender classes in elementary schools.
It's a distraction, man.
Yeah.
It's a distraction.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us, folks. We'll see you in the morning.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.